Hey folks, this is Dan Deppen for PLO8poker.com again, and I'm bringing another episode of Rush Poker. In this episode, I'll continue on talking about the basics, and I'll try to talk a little bit more about flop fits and what kind of flops we're looking for in different hands. So hopefully some good interesting flop situations will pop up. So this hand, King, this is basically a PLO high hand. It's generally very weak. It's definitely much weaker in PLO8 than in PLO high because we have no way of making a low. It does have some deception value in that when we hit this hand, a lot of opponents aren't going to put us on it. So they do have some value actually out of position in that if you have an aggressive opponent and you in position that's going to do a lot of the betting for you, you can sometimes win a big pot when you do hit. This being Rush Poker, it's a little bit more difficult to play those hands because I don't know a lot of these opponents except for some of the regs that are always in the game. That opponent I didn't happen to be familiar with. And I also had a gap at the top. I had King Jack 10-9. So if the gap is down lower, that hand's going to be a lot more valuable. This hand I just like to go ahead and bet. I've got the over pair of aces and I'm blocking the nut flush and the nut low draw, so it's a pretty powerful hand. And given the stack sizes, I'll just go ahead and shove this in. This hand here is really one that's going to be pretty tough to make the nuts. I'm probably going to have to make some kind of Broadway straight to make the nuts, so definitely not looking to bloat the pot out of position. This is a flop where the only really good thing we have going for us is we're blocking the nut flush, but in general, even in PLO high these days, that has limited value. And blocking the nut flush in a split pot game like this has even less value when, if the other player has a good low, he's going to be reluctant to give it up. So you're usually wasting your money when you try to do a naked ace bluff. Not super happy about playing this out of position, but we get actually a good flop texture, so paired flops are very tough for people to hit. We're not sure what he had. Flush draws are a little unlikely since we're blocking the ace. So this is one where we've got an ace blocker and the backdoor low, which we actually hit our low. And we've likely got half the pot, so try to get him to fold the other half, and that doesn't work out. Well, and he called us down with a queen high flush, which generally in PLO8, when you are going to put your stack in with flushes, you're generally going to want to have the nut flush most of the time. So we got two limpers here, as I mentioned in the first video. Usually people do not like to limp fold, so when you got two limpers, you're usually going to have a multi-way pot. But our hand is strong enough here in the button that I definitely don't mind playing this multi-way. So here we're drawing to a queen high flush, but we've also got the nut low now to go with it, so I don't mind. It's definitely one that if I hit the flush, I'd be willing to put my stack in. I want to just call here because of there's some chance that we could be getting three-quartered, and I'd really like him to call and get him sandwiched. And now the stacks are so shallow here that he's never folding, but we'll just go ahead and stick that in case he considers the 6 a scare card, or he could have been drawing at a nut flush or something like that he missed. So end up dragging a nice pot. I think had we just checked behind there, we likely would have been chopping that pot. So ace-ace is a real strong hand in PLO8, obviously. Obviously nowhere near the equity edge over most ranges of hands that you would have in No Limit, and not even as good as in PLO, so we want to be careful with it. And these are kind of decent, but definitely not great aces. We don't have any suits, and we've only got the 5-6 for a low. But it's strong enough that I'm not going to fold this, given those pot odds, but it's not one that I'm looking to bloat a pot either. And this is a flop we basically missed, and I'm going to give up here. I really don't want to call here and get jammed in against him, although at least for this guy, he's got not much of a stack left. More junky aces. These are ones you can actually open fold this, especially in a tight game like rush poker. So everyone's ranges are going to be much tighter. More apt to raise that in rush just because you're going to get folds from these players more often. So here we do have the ace diamond, and we have a texture that has no low draw, just only a backdoor low. So if he knows what he's doing, he shouldn't be drawing to too many non-nut flushes, and so I would expect to get quite a few folds there. Generally, the turn card pairing is a good card to bet. Since I felt like his range would not consist of a lot of flushes, he could have some bare kings, and his stack was short enough that I didn't want to get in, so I like to take the free card and see what he did on the river. Make my min raise under the gun. A lot of times when you raise under the gun, people are going to give you credit for ace-ace. So you want to raise some hands that are not ace-ace, although it's obviously still going to be a pretty tight range that you're raising overall. And so by min raising, it allows you to open more hands, a few more hands from under the gun, and you're also kind of keeping the pot smaller when you're out of position. I open limp this hand. It's a really ace-dependent hand, and we don't flop an ace. So I'm just going to give that up. I have a low draw, but it's a pretty not nutty low draw, and I don't want to get myself in trouble with that hand. And actually, that was one where I probably just should have opened for full pot instead of the min raise. So four-way here, we've got top pair, top kicker, but that's really not good in Omaha with all these draws and a big multi-way pot like that. Well, it's not that the pot was big, but the pot was multi-way and it had a lot of players. Bunch of middle cards here, no good, out of position. More junk. You do have to like rush poker and how you can just kind of zip through all these bad hands without having to wait for everyone. Out of the small blind there, even if the whole world limped with a hand that bad, we're not going to be too excited about that. We really need hands that have some ability to make the nuts out of position. So here in the big blind, we can just check and see free flop. It's a hand that generally you could raise, but I am going to be out of position against two players. And so I'd rather just keep the pot small and see a flop. And we basically missed this flop with the only the second nut low draw. And paired flops are generally good ones to bet, but when the flop pairs with two twos like that one did, it's much more likely that someone holds a 2 in their hand. And this was a pretty loose open. This is a hand I open under the gun mainly for the sake of the video. Generally, this is one where you can definitely fold from under the gun. So with the call and the raise, usually most players, especially in rush where the ranges are very, very tight, that's going to be ace-ace a large percentage of the time. So there's really not. I mean, this is a really ragged ace-deuce hand, so I'm going to go ahead and give that up. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this episode up pretty soon. This was Dan Deppen for PLO8poker.com, and so please visit my website where you can find more videos on PLO8 and also find strategy articles, and where you can also buy my book, Pot Limit Omaha Revealed, the expanded edition, which is the only full book available on Pot Limit Omaha 8. So thanks for watching.